Hey, welcome back to my channel. Appreciate your time. What I'm going to go through is the R-xsr. Okay, right here I have an R-xsr. It might look a little different from yours because I've removed the connector. So I have a very, very thin, very small profile running some of my tiniest little quads. Actually, I'm working towards saving up here for a toothpick style build, and they just seem to slide in there so much easier. So I'm going to talk about the R-xsr. I see a lot of questions online, and it just seems like people aren't getting the information that they want. And this is going to be some basic information on how does an R-xsr, like what does these wires even mean? What does this do? What does that do? So basically here we're going to power it up. I'm going to go through a couple things with you that you may not understand. And then also I'm going to update this to the newest firmware. You know, we're dealing with 2020 here, so it's time to get this guy updated. And then I'm going to bind it to my QX7. So I'm going to bind it before I even put it in a quad. I'm going to have it bound. I'm going to have it updated. It's going to be ready to go. All I have to do is basically solder it onto the flight controller, and it's ready to roll. So I'm going to go through some things with that. We're going to update it, and we're going to bind it, and then we're going to make sure that it's communicating. We don't want to put it in the quadcopter if it's not communicating. So I think you might get something out of this if you're not really understanding how to wire it, or you're not really sure what's going on with it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it, and we'll get started. Now, just before I get into zooming in here, I just want you to know these alligator clips are basically going to a transformer. Now this transformer is 5 volt 2 amp, okay? So the output 5 volt at 2 amps. So I got this for $1 at the thrift store. It just makes sense. Cut the end off of it, put you some alligator clips on it, and you're ready to roll. So I can plug that in. And then here's my signal wire for, this is my S bus, okay? I just have the end cut off there, so get that out of our way. The only thing we're dealing with right now is just powering it up and going through a couple things. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get zoomed in here. Okay, so on the front side, you'll have your connector, okay? And there's a wire harness that has a connector on it, okay? It's going to have all 5 wires coming out of the back. Let me grab one of them real quick. So you'll have ground, 5 volt, and then the next one is your S port, Smartpoint Telemetry. And then the green one is going to be your S bus, okay? And then this last one is if you're going to run another receiver. If you want to run an XM Plus off of here, you can have a redundant receiver package. So if something were to happen, no signal on these 2 antennas, it would automatically go to the other one. The strongest signal wins. And that way you have just ultimate range for these setups. Okay. And of course the other end of this is just, it's cut off so you can solder it on. Okay. But basically I've removed that connector, so I'm not going to use this harness. In this case scenario, we're not going to do a redundant. If you want to know more about how to set up an XM Plus, a non-telemetry extra receiver, and you want to use that, I have a video. So go look through there and you'll see where I've got R-xsr to XM Plus, and you can see how do you build it and bind it and all that. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to power up this R-xsr. Okay, now you'll right away see a blinking red light. Okay, that's what it should look like. If you're running S-bus, okay, you're running the digital protocol, which is S-bus. If you're not, if your flight controller demands a PPM, or in this case they call it a CPPM, which is an analog signal, okay, S-bus is digital, and then this PPM is an analog, older tech. Hold down on that bind button and make that light go off. Here's the thing. Here's where I want to go with this, is because there's a lot of guys, I think, that are binding their quadcopter with this installed, and they're holding down on this bind button too long. If you hold down on the bind button too long, about 4 seconds, 5 seconds, you can kind of see that blinking blue light, and then it went off. It's off right now. This receiver right now is PPM or CPPM, the older analog communication. We run S-bus, or I'm running S-bus, okay, which is a digital protocol. So I want that blue light to be on solid. So you just hold down on your bind button until it goes solid. I'm sorry, you let off after 4 or 5 seconds, you let off of it. And now you can see that the blue light is solid. Now this blinking red light is only happening because we're not bound to anything. You see that little LED right there? That one will be a solid green LED if you're bound up correctly to your transmitter. Okay? So the Frsky and then the QX7. We'll get into that. The other thing I wanted to mention, if I zoom out a little, I wanted to mention my antenna. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, okay? On the antenna, I ripped both the antennas off of this. So I got replacements. And I noticed that my R-xsr antenna, the active element here, was shorter on the R-xsr than my XM Plus. And I thought, nah, that's weird. Did some research and come up with a 2.4 gigahertz signal is supposed to be like 32 points, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's almost like 33 millimeters. Don't quote me on that, but it's roughly in that neighborhood. This active element is correct. So basically my hopes are is once I'm done, I can have a better, longer range because this is an actual length for a 2.4 gigahertz signal, which that's what, my Tranus is running off of. Okay, so we kind of went over a couple things, some wiring, the antennas, why you might go, well, my antennas don't look like that. These are aftermarket antennas. Okay, I'm just popped them on there. Okay. If you just want this receiver in your quadcopter just to fly the thing and you don't care about telemetry, you bought it for the fame of it or whatever the case may be, this is ready to go ahead and bind it, okay? And you're ready to go because this is your S-bus wire and then your hot and ground. If you want telemetry, we're going to have to add a wire here in between here, okay? For the Smartpoint Telemetry. This wire is going to hook up to your S-bus in on your flight controller. And then this Smartpoint Telemetry is going to go to an open T-pad. So you have a TX2, let's say. TX2 is open. And then in beta flight, you're going to turn, you're going to go into that UART2 and go all the way over, and you're going to turn on there's an active box you can turn on for Smartpoint Telemetry, and that's where that would come in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and bind this up. So we have our transmitter, we have our R-xsr, we have ability to supply it with 5 volts, okay? And we don't have this connected. You don't need anything connected to bind it to a model, okay? Turn on your Tranus.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Now,
throttle warning.
Okay. On your Tranus, you're just going to hit the center button so you can go to your models screen. And then if you don't have any models, just do one. I'm going to go to an open spot, okay? So, yeah, I have a handful of models in here. I'm going to go to an open spot here, and I'm going to choose that, okay? And then it says create model. Oh, yes, I want to create a model, and I want to do a multi. I'm not flying planes or deltas, so. Now, multi-copper throttle channel 1. Yes, that's right. I want channel 1. Hit page, roll on channel 2. That's correct. Pitch on 3. Yes, that's what I want. And yaw on 4. Okay. I'm hitting the page button to say yes to all that. And then it says, do you want to confirm? Well, that's what I want. So then I hold down on this, and then oops, I held down too long. Now it says model 13, okay? Hit page one time, model name. It didn't say model 13 in here because it's asking you to name it. You name it whatever you want. You want to name it Mobula 6 or whatever you want to name it, okay? Rex 80 or Bolt 120 or Twig or Leaf or Bark or whatever it is you want to put in here, put your name in there, okay? For the sake of argument, I'm going to name it A, okay? That's all I need to do for binding. And then I'm going to roll one time backwards. Okay? If you roll the other way, you're going to go through all this, which we don't need to do anything with that for binding. But we're going to roll one back, and then you'll see in your setup screen here, internal RF. I don't have an external. I don't have anything here in my JR bay. Okay? So internal RF. Now let's say you got a jumper T16 with the internal module. You can do the internal RF, okay? And then you're going to go down to mode. This is a D16 protocol, okay? So like your XM receiver would be D8. And this is a full range 16 channel receiver. So we're going to use D16 protocol, okay? So 16 channels. RX number, remember it said model 13 because it was on the 13th slot. Well, RX number 13 works for me. And then before I bind, just so I don't forget, I go to failsafe and I go ahead and set this to no pulse. Okay? That's how I do it. Research it on your own if you want. And then I'm going to go to bind. Okay? And before I hit that, I'm going to be ready over here. On your bind button, okay? You're going to push down on the bind button so you can feel the little click, and you're going to hold it down. See if I get my... All right, I'm holding down right now on that bind button. I'm going to go ahead and hit that. You're going to hear it chirp. Now I'm going to power up my receiver. Okay? Now, that's it. Can you see the little green light down in there? I don't know if you can see that blinking. See the green light is on all the time. The blue light is on all the time. The red light's flashing. Okay, and then I'm going to click here. So now we're done binding. No more chirping. Okay, we're done binding. I'm going to power off. Okay, let that power off completely. And then I'm going to power it back on. Okay, so now you see no more red.
Telemetry lost.
No more red flashing light. See how it's a solid. Now in the video, my shutter on my camera is rolling, so it's looking like it's blinking. But trust me, it's on solid, and so is the blue light. Okay, so that means we're bound up. Okay, so now we can go over to our transmitter. How do we know that we're bound up and everything's working? What you can do is you can page. Just keep hitting page over until you see it'll come up and it'll say telemetry. Okay, roll down. It says discover new sensors. Go ahead and click on that, and then it'll discover there's only a couple sensors that it's going to read. Okay, so RXBT, that's the power going into this receiver, and then you see RSSI. So it's reading 102 or 103 or whatever. So just go ahead and put your hand over the active elements of your antennas. Go ahead and cover them up. And now you see it went down to like 86, 84, 85. Lift your hand up, boom, right up to 103. Okay, so we know that this receiver is properly bound. This receiver, if you're not going to use the Smartpoint Telemetry, we already have a wire here for S-Bus. This is ready to go in your quad, and you just hook this up to your S-Bus line on your flight controller. So let's just, for example, Let's just take a look at this, okay? So this is like the Mamba F7. So like on here, we have, it's kind of nice on the newer stuff nowadays. It's just so nice. You don't have to use resistors or go track down a bunch of stuff or go into CLI and over your head or whatever. But basically you have this little area right here. So you have ground, 5 volt, PPM, remember we talked about that, and then S-bus. That S-bus is important because that's where we're going to put this S-bus, the little blue wire, okay? Now, if you want to run Smartpoint Telemetry, okay, so you get all this data back from your flight controller that goes to your transmitter. You know, can I pause for a minute? I don't know if people understand. Some people might not understand. I'd like to pause for a second. Telemetry is to get information to your transmitter so that you can read it on your screen. It's important to me because I do a lot of line of sight flying. So I want my transmitter to show me this information. If you don't care about the transmitter seeing all that information on the screen, you're still going to have all that information in your OSD without the Smartpoint Telemetry. The Smartpoint Telemetry is nothing more than basically the information going to the transmitter. Without the Smartpoint Telemetry, that all that data, all that voltage and amp and all these readings that's going on that would be in your OSD, they're not being sent to your transmitter. So if you're like me, kind of a little geeky and nerdy or whatever you want to say, but I use my transmitter when I'm flying line of sight so I can see what's going on. So basically, on here it's saying that UART2, UART3 are vacant, UART5 is vacant, and then UART6 is for your ESC telemetry. But if we want to hook up Smartpoint Telemetry, we can go to, basically this is open here. We can go in and put it on TX2. So we got S-bus, which is that the little blue wire. So we can put S-bus on here, and then the Smartpoint Telemetry wire we put on TX2. Okay? I'm going to do a build video where I install this into that build. So stay tuned, subscribe or whatever, and you'll be seeing that. I'm going to turn this off now.
Telemetry lost.
That's a good sign. So we're all bound up. Now, you already have your model. So A, whatever you named it, you named it, Firecat for all I know. But I named it A. So when we're ready to set up more stuff on the transmitter, I actually have a video where I've bound this Mobula 6 and I've set this completely up in the transmitter to fly it. I just wanted to, do a video on how do you get this thing bound up? How do you get the settings enough to where I can fly it well? So I have a video on that if you want to go look at that. But this receiver right now is ready to go into quad, and I don't have to mess with that thing, okay? Now I'm going to update this. I recommend everybody to update your receivers. I don't know why Frsky is not updating them to the newest firmware before they sell them, or you might get one that's not updated. So basically, if you're not interested in updating it, you're just going to fly the thing the way it came. So be it. If you want to know how to update it to the latest firmware, we're going to do that now. Okay, so I'm going to take my power leads off. Okay. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. So now in our case, because I've removed this connector, okay, I'm going to have to solder this one on. If you didn't remove that connector, then you should have one of these in your kit, okay, to do updating. Let me pull this out real quick here. Basically, I've marked this R-xsr firmware cable, okay, because this cable is a little different from some of these other cables that have this connector on it. So you don't want to You don't want to get that confused with something else. Okay, so you'll have, if you see there's a little ledge right here. I don't know if that lighting shows you that, but there's a little ledge right here. Okay, so that's how it goes into your Tranus. On the bottom of your Tranus, you have a port right here. You see that? See how it's got that little cutout on the edge? So you can't accidentally stick this in wrong, but I want you to pay attention to the color. So there's the little ledge right there, and then you're going to have your smart port. When you hook it up to your, see here, I have ground 5-volt and smart port. That's how you do the updates, through the smart port line. It's the third one. I'm going to have to unsolder. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just leave this out of the way and I'll solder this up in there. I would have done this video with a new R-xsr, but I don't have one, and I don't have the money to buy one right now. So there's the ledge right there. And then you have your signal, and you have your 5-volt, and you have your ground. Okay, so that's how that needs to be wired. And then on the other end, when you plug this into to yours that probably has the connector on it, it's going to be ground, 5-volt, and signal. Okay, so you need to make sure that that's correct, because if you plug this in, and let's say for instance you plug that into your transmitter, and these two wires are opposite, you're going to fry your R-xsr. So I'm going to go ahead and solder a wire in right here, and which is going to be this one, and then I'm going to connect these two. Okay. And we're just going to simply take a little black tape here, and we're going to isolate those. So pull them apart, so far apart, and then we're just going to fold this over one time. And then there, it should be good. So there's our harness hooked up, and that's ready to plug in. All right, so we're going to turn our transmitter on.
Welcome to OpenTX. Switch warning.
All right, so hopefully you can see that screen good. We have our R-xsr to our update pin here. All right, so servo lead, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to plug this into the back of the transmitter. Okay, now nothing's going to happen right now. There's no power, there's no nothing going on until we actually go into the firmware. So we're going to hold down on the center for a second. It's going to come up to radio setup page one time, and then see SD card. Okay, so we want to go into our SD card, and we're going to click here on firmware. Now I have a fair amount of firmware on here. Okay, you see that R-xsr ACCST. Okay, I'm not running Access. You got to make sure you're not following my video along if you've bought a receiver that runs Access. Okay, this is a ACCST firmware, and this is a FCC, because I live in the United States, so I've chose the FCC. If you don't know how to get this on your SD card, okay, so you've paged over and it says SD card, and there's none of this stuff is in here. Okay, there are a bunch of videos on how to download this file. I don't really want to go into all that, but basically we're just going to go in here to R-xsr ACCST, and then I have the newest version for 2020. Okay, all right, so we're going to choose that. We're going to hold down on it. It says flash external device. All right, I got some bad news. The newest version like the newest version of firmware for the R-xsr is not working right. So after downloading the newest version, basically I'm having issues, can't bind. So I did some research, and I guess there's something going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to download and flash this with the previous newer version, if you will, and then we'll bind it. So we'll turn our transmitter on.
Welcome to OpenTX.
And we'll go ahead and hold down here and page over. Go to firmware. Now I've already put the file onto my SD card. So we'll scroll down here, and here is the R-xsr FCC, because I live in the United States. This is a ACCST. Okay, it's not access, but ACCST. And then the newest version under the I don't know, corrupted V2. I'm not really understanding why that's not working, but they've done something here. So this is the 19112 firmware. So we're going to go ahead and flash that. So we'll go ahead and plug this in. Okay. Hold down on here. Flash external device. Okay. We don't want to flash the internal. We want to flash the external. And there's nothing in my JR bay. Okay. So we're going to flash external. Hold down on that a little longer, I guess. And then you'll see the lights flashing. Okay, so we're done flashing. Comes back to this screen. Okay, just go ahead and exit. Exit. So we're out of there. Okay, go ahead and unplug here. Go ahead and get our power leads back on here so we can power this bad boy back up. Okay, I'm just going to put this on that signal wire so we don't jump across here. All right. So now we'll go back to that model. Go ahead and bind it up. Okay. So got a solid blue and a solid green. And we'll go ahead and power it down. And go ahead and power it back up. Alright, so we have solid green, solid blue. Okay? So now we can go ahead and finish setting up a model. I have a video on that if you want to see, like, setting up your Mobula 6. So you're probably not going to use an R-xsr in your Mobile 6 because it comes built in with a receiver, but basically you get the point. So now this is solid green, solid blue. We're bound up. I'm going to power it off, and this basically is now.
Telemetry lost.
I'm not really sure exactly what happened with the newest version or the newest software. I'm going to dig a little deeper, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that if you were putting that software in there and it's not binding anymore, you kind of figured out real quick it's something going on with the software, so you want to go back. But right now, basically, this receiver is completely ready. It's updated, has new antennas. I got the 4 wires. Of course, you can put your connector back in. Okay, you could take that off. Okay, unplug that. I don't think you're gonna have that connector missing on yours, but take that off and go ahead and plug in your connector here. And then this white wire here to that little pin, that little plastic tab. Try not to break it off, but you pry that up and this wire will just pull right out. And then you'll just have your 4 wires to connect to your flight controller. Okay? Okay? And then you're ready to go ahead and put this in the quad. And you don't have to fiddle with it or mess with it anymore. Now I like to put a clear, not black or anything opaque to cover it, because I want to be able to see the LEDs. but you could put some clear shrink tubing over this, and then just put some double-sided adhesive. I love this Gorilla Tough and Clear. I put like that, just a little square of that on the shrink tubing, and stick it wherever I want it. Okay, but that's ready to go in your quad, and you don't have to mess with that anymore. So I hope that this answers some of those more basic questions, and maybe even some of the other questions. The R-xsr is a pretty nice receiver for the money and for the size, but just kind of getting an idea like what is going on there. So I hope this helped you out. If it did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. If it didn't, give me a thumbs down, and I won't make these videos anymore. All right, so I appreciate your time, and enjoy the breeze.